This week, we have a very special segment, one that I've wanted to run in the program for some time on OpusX Cigars. The history and all about one of my favorite cigars to smoke, as our listeners very well know. After that, we're going to do a debonair ideal on our top 5 lists of non-Connecticut morning cigars to smoke. It's going to be very interesting. We took Connecticut wrappers off the table, and we said, what else do you like to smoke in the morning? So we're going to do that as well as our Stogies of the Week. All that and more on this edition of the Stogie Geeks Show. This is a Security Weekly production. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geeks Show.
Brought to you by Bombay Cigars represent the most admired cigar culture of Cuba. They select the best of the best quality tobacco to use in the aging process. Bombay cigars are then rolled in Costa Rica by some of the most experienced cigar rollers, giving it a unique smoking experience. The band portrays a detailed and artistic nature of our small industry. Try the Bombay Casera, the Bombay Mora, and the recently released Bombay Habano. Bombay Cigars, where the cigar is a way of life. And by Punch Cigars. For more information, check them out at www.punchcigars.com. Havana Cigar Club, located in Warwick, Rhode Island, is a great place to enjoy a drink and a cigar. Stogie Geeks listeners can find a $5 off coupon on our website by clicking the HCC logo. Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, provides smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of the perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the quality and construction that he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran signature line, Azan, Nea, and Baracoa. Duran uses a seed to humidor approach, as all of their tobacco is grown in their farms and rolled in their factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Premium Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard.
Welcome, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, where I am here with the illustrious host, Mr. Joe Huzempa.
How are you?
Joe, welcome to the show. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I'm like chomping at the bit to light. We decided to light and cut the cigar on the air.
Yes.
Just to be different from previous shows, whatever. I don't know. Normally we don't do that. Will is not with us tonight. It's just Joe and I in studio. And we've got a fabulous lineup in the show this evening. We're both standing like drooling over our OpusX cigars.
And I hope you get the chance to explain this drink.
Let's start there.
It's tasty.
Because I was like, I need a drink that's going to pair well with an OpusX cigar. And while I'm explaining that, I want to cut and light this cigar. Maybe we'll do that now. All right, so I'll explain the drink first. I'll try and hold off. I wanted something to go well with an OpusX cigar. I wanted something with a little bit of sweetness to it. I didn't want too much tartness. That ruins really any cigar. I was very limited because we have no fruit. There's no lemons or oranges at our bar. I was like, oh, it's too late to go to the store. What am I going to do? So I need something that it's supposed to have a lemon twist in it, but I decided to make it without it. So I made a Sazerac. And the Sazerac is bourbon or rye whiskey, primarily, and then use a little bit of herb saint or absinthe. And what I like to do, regardless of what the recipe says, I think this one said rinse the inside of the glass with the herb saint or the absinthe. Some recipes have you put it in. I pretty much never put it in because that stuff is so strong. It'll ruin it. So I just swirled it on the inside of a frozen glass and discarded the rest of it. So I coated the inside of the glass. And then you do bourbon, Peychaud's bitters, which is really, for those that aren't into like bitters and stuff, Peychaud's is just a different kind of bitters. It's basically not as bitter. It's a little sweeter. And it's very red in color, which is where the color comes from in the drink. And then what else did I add? Oh, some sugar syrup. I don't know. There's like a recipe. I kind of loosely followed it. And I used, do you know what kind of bourbon is in here?
No.
Do you think it's expensive or not expensive? Middle of the road, you think?
Middle of the road, yeah.
It's Jim Beam.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's Jim Beam bourbon.
Yeah, because
in
I guess it's the other stuff, the bitters, that it has a sweetness, subtle
but it's not
aftertaste.
too sweet. I
No.
think
Nope.
I did it. I've been getting better.
Yeah.
My Sazeracs and Negronis are very tough. They're tough drinks to make. It didn't always work out that way. But I took a sip, and Joe and I were like, wow, that's really good. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's going to go really well with the cigar.
Let's do it.
So we have, I decided to do an OpusX segment because I've wanted to do one for so long. We talk about OpusX on the show, and I think it was really Joe that said, well, I did a whole episode on the band. Mm-hmm. And I said, we should do a whole episode on OpusX. We talk about it on the show. We haven't talked about it on the show in quite some time. It's also the 20th anniversary of OpusX, even though they hit, hey, look, we have oranges. They hit the market in 95, so I'm not sure why. Why is it the 20th anniversary then? Maybe they didn't officially release it till I don't know, but they came out in 1995.
Sure.
I know that from reading today. But it is the 20th anniversary of OpusX cigars, and the 20th anniversary OpusX cigar line came out with those blue bands and the blue boxes. So I reached back into my humidor. This is from a Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, a CFCF box, where basically they package together a whole bunch of special OpusX cigars, typically in individual coffins. Mm-hmm. I believe every release had an individual coffin in that box. They retail anywhere from $800 to a little over $1,000, depending on the year, depending on how many cigars that you get. Usually you get 22, and they call it the Opus 22. They did that recently as well. I'm not sure how many were in the 2010 box. But 7 years, that's a good amount of time, I think, to age OpusX. They age really well. And this is the Reserva de Chateau size, and it is a 7x48, we said, right?
Yes.
7x48, which I would call Churchill. And it is, I believe, one of the original sizes. One of the reviews we were reading said it was from 2007. I think that's the one that they were reviewing. I'm pretty sure this was in the original. People can correct me if they think I'm wrong, and I'm sure they will. But I believe this was one of the original size OpusX cigars that came on the market.
I remember from a retail perspective, when I used to own a cigar shop in Providence,
Yes.
people went crazy for these.
Crazy.
Waiting list.
Crazy.
We actually had a waiting list where you would come into the shop. You could only purchase them 2 at a time. There was probably a 6 to 8 week waiting list
Wow.
for that. And
Well, they were only released, some of the original releases I remember reading earlier today, in like the mid-90s, they would get 4 releases per year of 12 boxes to spread across 7 stores
Right.
in some instances by particular retailers.
yeah,
So
it was real difficult.
there was a lot of retailers that were really mad in the beginning, too. I guess Carlito, or one of the Fuentes, Carlos or Carlito, or both, made the decision that since California was hit with such a high tax, that they would be generous and send them some OpusX cigars, which really kind of ticked off a lot of other retailers.
Right. You're
So-
looking at the cellophane, it's got a little bit of aging on it, too.
Yeah, so this is 7 years old. Wow, it just smokes beautiful, too.
Oh.
Beautiful construction.
Can't wait.
Really nice draw. So, yeah, and I've smoked several from this box, by the way, in Stogie Geeks history. You can go to our Stogie's feed. You'll see the ones that came from this box because you notice the secondary band on that, Joe. It says 2010. Mm-hmm. That's how you know it came from that box, which I think is nice because it tells me what year they were from in case it ever gets out of the little humidor that it came in, or box that it came in. So, 7 years old. Always a joy to smoke the aged Opus. Quite a story behind Opus. I know there's a lot of intricacies in the band. The story largely, most of the facts came from Cigar Aficionado. Has done a series of articles on them, as well as a number of other online blogs and publications have done articles. Do you know what the code name? Well, you saw it because it was in the. I can't even quiz you because we shared the same notes for this. But I read this and then I remembered that someone told me that once the original code name before it became OpusX.
I didn't. I was doing my notes and we were going, so I didn't read all of the notes.
Joe, good. Do you remember what it was?
The
from
code
history?
name for the OpusX? No, I don't remember at all what it was.
So it was first called Project X from Planet 9. This came from the Cigar Aficionado article. It was a working title, and then Carlos, I believe it was Carlos Fuente, was looking through the thesaurus and saw the using of the word opulent. And he came across the word opus and thought it was perfect, combined it with the letter X and said OpusX and said, hey, that sounds like sex. So that's what I'm going to call this cigar.
That can happen.
So that was pretty cool. The Oliva family actually owned, so there's a whole history. If you read the history of Fuentes, there was three fires.
It was 3.
One in Tampa, one in Nicaragua, one in Honduras before they settled in the Dominican.
Right.
So the 3 fires, which kind of actually helps, I think, tell the story behind this cigar. Because Oliva, the family owned the land that would eventually become Chateau Fuente, where all of the OpusX, the wrapper leaves, and I'm assuming the filler and binder are grown as well. All the tobacco is grown on their farms, is what I surmised from the article. Specifically, the wrapper leaf was where the original Oliva farm, which he kind of rented from Oliva, and they let him experiment with some different kinds of tobacco. And based on the soil and the composition of the tobacco fields in the farm, they decided that they would grow Corojo leaf. Now, let's back up a second. For those who remember, mid-90s, I was smoking cigars in the mid-90s. Largely, I was in college, and I was just smoking Cuban cigars and, like, whatever. And I wasn't, like, so much into, like, where the origins came from. Wrapper leaf wasn't grown in the Dominican. You believe that?
Right.
They were just not growing wrapper leaf in the Dominican because of the climate conditions. And I think the farming that was available at that time, people just weren't growing wrapper leaf. Now, what Carlito and Carlos decided to do was to grow Corojo seed. Now, we ran a segment on Corojo seed several episodes back, which is why it caught my attention, right? It was one of the original, basically plant. I mean, if you really want to get geeky, right, there's I forget what the name of the strain of plant. It's like, you know how plants have like a normal English name and then the scientific name? So there's that strain of tobacco plants that all tobacco plants come from, and then they kind of make hybrids. So the 2 main categories, one is primarily used for cigars, and one's actually used for pipe tobacco. So the original tobacco plants largely were Corojo. Corojo and Criollo eventually are the 2 primary types, but Corojo was the most popular wrapper type primarily because it was grown in Cuba. However, due to 2 factors, one being that, the Cuban Revolution happened, so that had to change. That certainly changed the economics and the dynamics of wrapper leaf. But also, it was very prone to blue mold and tobacco beetles. So there are some people who are famous for taking Corojo plants and having the original seed Corojo grown in other parts of the world, the Aroa family specifically in Honduras, and the Fuentes, who took the original Corojo seed. Now, what they did is they basically genetically made hybrids, and so they changed the genetics of the Corojo plant so that it could overcome that blue mold, right? They got Havana 2000, they got Criollo, Corojo 99, which are all variants of that original plant that was prone to mold. But the original Corojo is actually grown in the Dominican, and most people will say that OpusX is a Rosado wrapper, right? Rosado is a reference to color, which I thought was interesting. I had never seen it, and never looked into it that much to figure out that it was an actual Corojo plant that was done. I always thought of it as a Rosado, and I kind of left it at that and never, researched it much beyond that. However, Rosado is just color. That's really just reference to the color. And typically it's Ecuadorian seeds that produce that kind of Rosado, Ecuadorian Rosado, that reddish hue, but other tobacco plants can as well.
Yeah.
So
this has always been a cigar that will slow down your pace.
Oh, yeah.
Wherever you are, if you owe it to yourself to treat yourself to the OpusX, and it's one of those things for me, it just really slows down the time,
Now, some people don't like it.
Really?
Which is fine. Some people will, in almost always the person will say, well, I prefer the Añejo, which that's like a totally different show, totally different,
Sure.
different components used to make that cigar is a totally different blend. And a totally different story. Not fire, but hurricane or something that destroyed a farm, right?
I think it was a natural disaster, and it did that. And, it's I don't know. I think it's apples and oranges since we have no fruit. So, I'll use that analogy. Right. It's one of those things where, the añejo comes out at a specific time of year.
Right.
I've said on previous episodes since I've been here, that always reminds me in New England that winter's coming. You know what I mean? Like it comes out in mid-November around here.
Around that time.
Yeah, it comes out there, and
when it's ready, I think is if you read the articles like how they
but
But they try over the years they've been able to make it ready.
Yep.
At certain times of the year. So
this is smooth.
It is very, very smooth. I mean, it really hasn't. It's not aged out. I've smoked and if you look in the Stogie Geeks history, I've smoked an original OpusX Double Corona from 1995. Which are very hard to come by. And it was the first inch was amazing sweetness and awesome flavors, and then it was kind of it actually kind of aged out. Was my experience anyhow. So I think 7 years is good. 3 years is kind of a general rule of thumb. A lot of people don't like the collecting and aging for 3 years kind of thing. I get into it. I put them in Ziploc bags in my humidor, and I write the year and the month on the bag. So, and I've built up enough stock where I smoke anything that's 3 years old or longer, been aging in my humidor. So, because it is, if you smoke them when they first come in, the Opus it's got the foot smells like cat urine. Okay. I don't know if you ever noticed that. Have you noticed that?
No.
Do you get cat urine from the foot, Joe?
I don't get cat urine from the foot at all. But then again, I wouldn't get them when they first come in. I'm usually go to the local retailer.
Get some that have been aged.
Hopefully they've been aged and properly.
Right.
And stuff like that from shipping. So,
I find that at first OpusX smells like cat urine. And then... As I don't know, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but I can tell by the sniffing the foot, at least this is how I tell, is I still get that kind of, it's a very, cat urine's probably, the Fuentes would probably want to throw things at me right now, or send a hit squad after me. But it's a very pungent aroma from the foot when they first come from the factory. But after time, when that very pungent aroma turns into this kind of cinnamon, it has a cinnamon sweetness that you get off of the foot when you smell it. That's how I think it's ready to smoke. Mm-hmm. Now, mileage may vary. Certain sizes certainly are different in age. I think age differently. Smaller sizes, I think age a little more. I don't know if the tobacco's not aging any more quickly. We don't have a time machine. But I tend to find that they age differently. And present differently when they're shipped from the factory. So some of the smaller sizes I find, like the Fuente, which is the Corona, I think that cigar is great to smoke as soon as it comes in and put some age on it. I don't know. That's just me. Do you have a favorite size, OpusX, Joe?
I like the Churchill size, and the reason being this is perfect. The ring gauge, the smaller ring gauge, because again, it's one of those cigars. I always mention sometimes in the previous episodes, if it's golfable, I would not smoke an OpusX golfing.
No, it's a great point.
Because I would be time to tee off, and you know what I mean? And this is one of those cigars that you really owe it to yourself to just totally engulf yourself in the moment. And just, I don't know. It's always been a cigar that has always taken me back.
Yeah.
Just that you kind of... It's kind of like a reset button.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever want to smoke a cigar and not be, I don't like to check email or anything electronic while I'm doing this. I really want to focus on this, and that's why I'm enjoying this now. I have a chance to have a great drink and
yes,
and be with the listeners, and it's awesome. It's just a really good moment right now.
What I found interesting too was after the fires, they moved the factory to the Dominican. The Hemingway line came on the market and was met with great success. Mm-hmm. And, the Fuentes really wanted something special. And I think that they were certainly motivated, right? There's something to be said about someone who's doing a startup, for example, and has to, start over from scratch, maybe do it again, and like that's their thing and that's their passion. And to just take like that land and do what they did with it with the tobacco and really take a chance and grow everything on their own farms, like that was a risky thing. I never realized like how risky that was for the Fuentes to do that. Like there was no wrapper leaf being grown in the Dominican, and then here they are taking this Corojo seed, which is known to have issues, and they're growing it in the Dominican. And lo and behold, like they produced one of the most popular, sought-after cigar lines. It was really like the first, like I'd heard it described as the first cult cigar.
Oh, for sure.
I think it was like the first like boutique cigar that people chase after cigars all the time now. I think this was one of the only ones back then or one of the more popular ones that people were chasing.
Right, and they were not. I think they were chasing it just by default because you could never, hardly ever walk into a shop and buy
find
one.
it.
And buy one.
It's much more available today, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, during the boom, that whole late '90s. I mean, also timing. It came out at a great time. A lot of people were smoking cigars. This is a phenomenal after dinner smoke. It's not too strong. As opposed to the Añejo, right? If you're in there, it's not as short as the Hemingway. Like this is I've had a good meal. Let me have a good cigar.
It is when it first comes from it's a very strong cigar.
Yeah.
It remains a strong cigar for some time. I mean, so I find
So you
differences
call it medium?
in sizes.
You call it medium?
I would call it
Barely medium?
strength-wise. I would call it full in a lot of sizes when it first hits the market from the factory and hits the retailer. I think it definitely diminishes in strength, but holds its flavor for 10 or more years. Right in your I think the original releases were just kind of aging out a couple of years ago when I smoked one. So that's my assessment now. Your mileage may vary. The size might be different. Whatever.
Did you read the notes on the band? Band pot?
I have not.
The band pot is.
I was leaving the band part to you. I was trying to cover the history behind everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I do have another fact that I found was absolutely fascinating. They actually all the tobacco for the OpusX wrapper binder filler is produced on their farms or farms that they own and control. Whatever's left over from making OpusX, you know what they do with it?
Don't they make pipe?
Nope. They destroy it.
No.
They destroy it. According to the Cigar Aficionado article with
I figured they would
Carlito
resell it,
Fuente.
maybe go to like a higher end pipe.
You know why they don't do that? So no one else can claim that their cigar has tobacco that's OpusX in their cigar. They want to be the only OpusX cigar on the market. They don't want anyone else to even claim that, this cigar has some of the same tobacco as OpusX. Because other people are benefiting from the brand and the name.
Sure.
And before we get to the band, there was a trade. Speaking of protecting the trademark, there was a trademark dispute.
Yeah, I was going to go there too. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah. No, from a business perspective, okay, you have this beautiful product, and people are sought after it, and people seek it, and it's got a lot of buzz around it. And then all of a sudden,
also it takes years to go from seed to cigar.
Sure.
I mean, at least. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. At least 2 years before you get from seed to cigar?
I would think
it's something like that.
For good stuff, yeah.
Yeah. For good stuff, probably, I would say longer than that.
For good stuff. I know some of the boutiques are like, wait a minute, but, it's, they were going through business, and then all of a sudden, they get a letter. It's a cease and desist letter, usually is how it starts.
They wanted them, it was Opus One Wine, who was bought by some, I forget the parent company, but they got the trademark, which was used as a trademark for pipe tobacco at one time, but they acquired that trademark and used it for wine. And they wanted them not only to cease and desist, and they wanted them to destroy any products that had that name on it.
Right. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. And obviously...
And the Fuentes fought it. I mean, for those who don't know, like a trademark battle can go on for several years and be very, very expensive and really ugly.
But when, when you have a family behind the brand, and we'll get to that when we talk about the band, very family story. It actually tells a story. And, if you feel like you have a great product and you want to defend yourself, You know, we have processes for that are very expensive.
And they're very laborious, very lengthy,
Yep.
And very expensive. And they fought it in court, and they essentially won.
So was it originally supposed to, toggling back, was it originally supposed to be like called Project X, or they just called it?
Oh, it was Project. Did we even get to that?
You had started with that.
Oh, Project X from Planet 9
Okay.
was the working title.
Yeah.
I don't think did I say that on the air? I might not.
Yeah.
I said it in my head. Did I verbalize it?
Oh, yes, you did.
A lot of times, voices in my head. Just,
Well, that's another podcast.
Be a good name for a podcast. The voices in my head. That might be trademarked though. Yeah. So it was actually wine, a wine company, and they eventually won. The judge basically said, "You have two distinct products in two different markets that won't cause confusion from the consumer." And in one of the articles I read, they said that Carlito or Carlos, I think, has the picture of the article from the Tampa newspaper where they won the trademark suit.
Yeah.
And apparently is still bitter about it 20 years later.
Oh, sure.
You know what? I haven't been through a similar process in a trademark dispute. I can't say that I blame him.
Yeah.
He describes it as the most stressful time of his life, and I really have a deep appreciation for that, having been through similar.
Well,
I didn't end up going to court over it. But
Well, what do you do? I mean, you know, what would have happened if they would have had to call it someone else? What do you call it?
Right.
You can't get... Project X from Planet 9 is a...
Can you imagine if we're sitting here smoking Project X from Planet 9?
You know what I mean? It's...
And there was spaceships on it. There's probably an alternate universe where it is called Project X from Planet 9.
Maybe.
And the band has spaceships on it.
That'd be cool.
I watch too much science fiction.
No, that's great. That's great. That's great. But can you imagine putting that on a label? Project X.
No, because it's such an iconic band and really heralded as one of the nicest bands to look at. And you have more information on that, too. I never looked into what all the things meant. And
Well, yeah, no, it was one of those things that I came across in my travels. And if you take apart the band here, right? So we got the exact same band, so I'm excited about that, right? Every element of the Arturo Fuente OpusX band has sentimental symbolism and hidden meaning, right? It's a great article here. Cigar Aficionado had posted this, and I guess we can start. And what's great about this is it actually has the label.
Yeah.
Yep, there's actually a diagram. So it has 6 points here, and point number 1 is the half oval. In addition to forming the first half of the O, so that would be right before the opus, right? It also serves as the letter C, which represents the company's patriarch, Carlos Fuente Sr. So right over here. Right. So
trying to get my band.
So if you right. So if you match the diagram, right, it's right before the X. So you have the X and it's right there. So that right there is the C.
Yeah.
Right, is the C over there. So it's paying homage to the founder, right? This I found fascinating, and I mentioned this very briefly on a previous show when we started going down this road. Point number 2, behind the big X there is an orange glow, okay? And it's the nickel, what it represents is the nickel mines in the mountains that radiate an amber light that can be seen from the chateau. On the tobacco farm.
Chateau Fuente,
Yep.
the farm.
Yep.
Right.
Right. So on the farm. So that light, that ambient there, with the amber farms, it just produces a light that reminds them of that. And from a design perspective, every time I smoke a cigar, I always go to the label.
You want to understand the story behind it, yeah.
That, and I also peel off the label. I don't smoke it with the band. I don't know why.
I let it get further down typically, so the band kind of heats up and loosens the glue that holds it together.
Yeah. If it's hard to peel off, I won't peel it off.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get the leaf, but I usually wait and see. So, and then when I'm at a shop or if I'm at pretty much any time other than when I'm doing an activity with a cigar, I always take a couple of moments to look at the band. To look at the band, because 10 out of 10 times there was some sort of a board meeting or some sort of a factory meeting,
Right.
saying, okay, we got this great product. How are we going to market it? It's got to look great for presentation. Some are more creative than others, but moving on. Number 3 is the die cut style. So the band kind of has this die cut that goes all around and kind of gives it this 3D image here. And it says the die cut shape of the band, it is the same geometric pattern as most of the Arturo Fuente cigar bands that are from the flagship Don Carlos Gran Reserva. So most of the bands mimic the actual, because the Fuente band would usually just have like this size, this die cut there.
Oh, I see.
So it's kind of like a shield.
There's like a band on a band kind of thing.
Right. So it's like a band on the band, which I thought was pretty neat. Also, point number 4 here, all on the bottom of the band, there's like this torn edge. So it's kind of jagged right on the bottom there. And the torn edge is an allusion to Fuente Jr.'s childhood. As a boy, he tore a Valentine down in the middle, giving the first half to his sweetheart and keeping it to the other. So now we're moving to the next generation, right?
Right.
And he must have had a moment, boy girl moment.
Yeah.
That was pretty close to him, and he tore the thing. There's no news if it worked out between him and the Valentine, but
I think I remember hearing that story now that you say that.
He tore it and whatnot. Because if you look at the band, it looks like
it is this torn at the bottom.
It looks unfinished. It looks unfinished, and I will tell you from a graphic design perspective, it's not an easy band to mimic and I don't want to say counterfeit, but it's not an easy band to
replicate,
to recreate. Yeah, sure. The double F. So obviously in the middle you have the big X, the big red X, and then you have the double F kind of wrapped around there. And that point there is the bond between father and son is central to the monogram. Right, so it's right in the middle, got into the X, and then the pair of F symbolizes both Fuentes, Senior, Carlos Senior, and Carlito Junior. So it's I guess it's passing the torch, family bond. It's basically, to me, this is like a crest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the Middle Ages, or you have.
Well, and it's
if there was a flag hanging,
it would be this, right?
Waving, it would definitely be this, because they obviously took the time out to make sure that they have all of these points here. And then the right half of the oval, you remember how we began with the left half, which had the C? The right half of the oval, in addition to forming the second half of the O, it also serves as a backwards letter C, which represents Junior.
Gotcha.
So again, they're obviously strong family, strong family. That they wanted the tell the story, and who knows if that lawsuit went the other way, it could have broke them maybe.
Right.
You never know how much it was or something like that. You never know. There's certain things that have to happen in business at a certain time.
Yes.
In order for it to be a catalyst for how we perceive it today. So
And it's typically referred to as Fuente Fuente OpusX.
Yes. Yep.
And Fuente Fuente is a size.
Yes. Yep.
Which I always found very confusing, along with all of the different sizes and different variations of OpusX, which are probably different segments.
Sure.
Like Lost City has its whole Lost City. I don't know how much tobacco. I don't think it shares all that much tobacco with OpusX. I forget what, if any, there are ties to the Lost City. But that was the one where they're filming the movie and with Andy Garcia and all that stuff. And that's what they called the farm and blah, blah, blah. So they have that. And then there's all different kinds of different variants of OpusX out there. And the sizes are just, so some, I kind of put the sizes for me into 3 different categories, right? There's the regular production sizes, which, don't get me wrong, it is, to my knowledge, the same tobacco, right? Some of the really special ones, you can see it looks like it has a green band going through some of them. Like they obviously have some Candela. There's a Maduro version of the OpusX wrapper, which not much has been published about or written about. I don't know if it's the same. One can only surmise it's the same Rosado, Corojo-based wrapper that they just put through a Maduro process to get that, but who knows. And then, so there's regular production, which I tell everyone, you buy some, age it. I think it's great. And then whatever sizes are available, and everyone has their favorites. I like the Power Ranger is great. That Super XXX Bellicoso, that's a great smoke. Fuente Fuente is a great size. Those are some of my favorite regular production. The Petite Corona is really good too. Those are some really good regular production sizes. Then you've got like the limited release sizes, which you get in the Charitable Foundation, or they kind of do like every once in a while. And those are either limited to special edition gift sets, like the Fuente Fuente BBMF, Big Bad Mother, you know what, right? And we've reviewed those in the show. We've done whole segments on those shows. Those are awesome. They make one in the Maduro, which is friggin' out of this world, dude. Holy crap. If I had 2 more of those, we'd do another segment. So typically, like the BBMF, you'll never see come to a retailer. So I guess there's kind of like a 1 in a 1A is like there are some sizes that very rarely end up at retailers in full boxes, but I have seen the OpusX Love Affair come out in a full box at a retailer, and I've seen that in their special edition boxes as well. But like I've never seen a box of BBMFs anywhere at a retailer. So there are some special sizes that kind of creep in and will get sent to retailers sometime. I love the Love Affair size. That probably is my favorite size. And I happen to buy a box of those because you could find them like here and there and different gift sets and the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation boxes. So then there are there's like regular production, some special releases to retailers. Then there's the very limited edition sizes, which again come in some of the special gift sets, and they make them now. They're more readily available. You can buy them, and we've got a couple here in the studio. They're like in the 5-pack gift pack kind of things, the story boxes they call them. It comes with like a BBMF and some other special ones, and they're different every year. Is what they come with. So that's a great thing to look for. Those are also very limited sizes. Then there's like after that, there's limited sizes that the Fuente family has just done for special events over the years. And some are harder to find than others, but mostly they're like unicorns. And mostly I think they're unicorns that speak Estonian. Really, like you're just never going to see them.
Sure.
Unless you visit Chateau Fuente and one of the Fuentes hands you one. And there actually have been posts to various cigar media outlets of people that have, they've taken pictures. Cigar Aficionado did one. It was like 5 special sizes. One was called like the PJ, and he wouldn't tell them the meaning behind it, which implies it has some kind of dirty meaning, which is kind of what the article was implying. And they've got like the LFMF, Little Fat Mother, and then they've got different sizes. Some of them are kind of dirty, which makes me think the PJ is kind of a dirty. He said you do it after some activity. That's all he would say.
There you go.
So one can only surmise what that activity is.
Right.
They did Lanceros came to retailers. Lanceros are sized typically in the CFCF boxes. But a couple of years ago, they did a release, and I haven't seen it since then. It's got to be 3 years now. They did an OpusX Lancero that came in boxes of 10. I have one in my humidor, actually. That's another show. We'll do a couple of those and see how they're aging.
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking at, while you're talking, I'm listening. I'm looking at you know how you said it was, it had a double band for this edition? In the 2010 different label here, it looks like they kept everything except for the 2 Cs.
Yeah,
so it's
the
still
secondary band is
So the secondary band, so it still has the orange glow. It still has the die cut a little bit.
The hooks are there's only 2 hooks in there instead of. Oh no, there's 4 hooks. They're just in different places.
Yeah, right.
I see them now.
I was actually tilting it, like trying to see if it's did a C or whatever. But yeah, and he still has that torn edge at the bottom. You know, the bottom there,
right?
That frayed edge, that frayed, jagged edge. He's got that, and like I said, he's got that orange glow. And the orange glow, even on the original wrapper, it peeks out again on the back. Over here when it gets past the die cut, so it's pretty neat how they just
it's pretty cool.
They wanted it to be that color, and just really tell the story over there. So I think it's pretty cool. It's definitely.
What was I going to say? The rollers that roll the cigars. in the articles that I read said that there was a whole article on a roller who actually owns his own shop now somewhere in Pennsylvania, I think.
It's like the best of the factory, right?
Yeah, but like they say that to be a roller at Fuente, they don't take rollers from that have been rolling cigars anywhere else because they've already learned bad habits, according to the Fuentes. Which I thought from a business standpoint is pretty funny.
Yes.
But so they take people who do not know how to roll cigars and they groom them and they take the best of the best. And the articles that I read were very consistent in saying that once a roller is able and given the privilege to roll OpusX, they give them one size. And they only roll that one size. Mm-hmm. Like this, the roller, I forget his name. It's in there.
Well, you know why they probably do that from a business perspective? For consistency.
Franklin Pichardo. Okay. He was like the Perfection X #2 guy. That's all. That's all he rolled. That's all he rolled was that size. You get one size to roll, and that's it.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. So,
have you ever been to a cigar rolling event?
Yeah.
You see them, and what I find fascinating is, let's say, X amount of tobacco equals 20 sticks, right? And it's amazing how they construct it when they get really close to the end. You know, so they have like limited tobacco left, and then they get it. And it's amazing how what they peel off to make X amount of sticks is usually pretty close.
Right.
There's not a lot of waste at all, which I'm sure is the case with these. You know, they got to be really, watching for that quality and trying to get it consistent and stuff like that for sure.
One day when Les Mann was on the show, he gave me that Fuentes had given him. It was an OpusX, but it was a box pressed.
Okay.
And I believe it was box pressed.
Lightly pressed or really box pressed?
Lightly box pressed. Never seen it before. It was freaking awesome. Holy crap. That was one of those super rare ones that you have to be gifted. Right?
Sure.
So I have smoked one of those before. The other thing that I was told from a source that is close to the Fuente OpusX kind of history in cigars is that they obviously use very specific components from their farms in the tobacco, so much so that they destroy the rest of it, right? And the Fuentes refuse to add any other leaf that would improve the burn. It's all about their ingredients that they started with, from day one and have groomed for the past 20 years in their farms, and that there's no tobaccos in there that would improve the burn. And if you've noticed, like, a lot of times you got to pay a little attention, you got to relight kind of here and there with the OpusX. And I was told because they didn't want to put anything else in it that would just, like, improve the burn. So they use a different leaf, change to a different leaf that may be burned differently. Like, they want to keep the recipe the same and not deviate from that.
Yeah, it does have a slow burn. It does have a slow.
And sometimes it gets weird and you got to relight it more. It doesn't lose anything when you relight it, though, I find.
No, I don't find, I know some people get pretty rowdy with that. It's got to be a certain amount of ash before they go through and stuff like that. I don't know. I guess to each their own, but it does have a slow burn. Like I said, I think it's one of those cigars. It'll stop you in your tracks.
Yep.
Especially with this.
Especially if it's right off the truck. Woo.
Yeah, especially in this crazy world where things get pretty rowdy. It just takes you back. I'm sitting here right now, saying this is like a really, really good smoke. It
does smoke. So yeah, this cigar. Just pause and talk about how this cigar smoke is just awesome.
Yeah,
I love the leathery component to OpusX. I like that. I know leather's like a weird thing to describe as far, like, because not many people walk around eating leather. I mean, some might. Shoelaces, maybe. I don't know,
but
belts. Sometimes I gnaw my belt just to get the taste of leather, so I can associate it with.
When I describe leather, I
don't know if I want you describing leather on the show.
Leather and lace, right?
Not that kind of show, Joe.
No, I think it's
not like 50 Shades of Grey.
No. It lingers in it kind of lingers on your palate. And that's exactly what this is doing. You take a sip of this, and then go to this.
Excuse me.
And then you have you just let the smoke linger on your palate, and you're like, wow, this is.
It paired very well with the Sazerac.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
What else would you pair with it if you didn't?
It's a good question. I usually pair Scotch with the OpusX, Scotch or bourbon. I really have yet to find a Scotch or bourbon that really doesn't kind of go with the OpusX.
Right.
Cognac too.
Yeah.
We can switch to cognac next if you want, actually.
Well, we can see.
Ooh, cognac.
We can see. But I think
that would go really well with this.
I don't know. OpusX, for me, time period of the day, it's usually in the morning. You know, it's usually in the morning.
A morning OpusX. See, mine is always after dinner.
See, long are the days of having dinner and then having a cigar.
Yeah,
you have to go to separate places now. If you're with friends, they lose momentum. People start looking at the clocks. Emails start going in. And, and they get kind of rowdy. But I don't know. I've always paired it with coffee or a bourbon. You know, definitely a bourbon.
Or coffee and bourbon together, which is fabulous, by the way.
Yeah, I try not to do that in the morning.
You got if you have a rough morning, dude. I'm telling you, a little bourbon in your coffee, it makes your day.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could smoke an OpusX in the morning though.
No.
We're going to talk about morning cigars next.
Yes, that's
OpusX is not on my list, dude.
Really?
If all the more power to you if you can take down an OpusX in the morning.
Oh yeah, I could definitely do it. I open OpusX. Some of my choices, I'm sure.
Some people do like
some of the listeners are going to either be like, "This kid's crazy," you know.
Some people do like the fuller bodied and stronger cigars in the morning, and if that's your thing, that's cool. Not for me.
Me specifically, it's the mood. It's the mood. Like if I say, okay, this is going to be the day where my time for period to have a cigar, call it 10 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon, right? I'm going to have one good one, right? So I want a good one.
Yeah, you're not worried about strength at that point.
I says,
you're like, give me the OpusX.
I want a good cigar to take me back or whatever. Especially like next week, I have all night appointments.
Yeah.
So I'm be smoking mostly in the morning.
What's the the sweetness that you get from it? I always go back to cinnamon. I think it's very much in that category of cinnamon. It's not a sugary sweetness.
You don't get a little bit of nut, a little bit of...
A little bit. Yes.
Little bit.
And this one, yes. Yes.
Describe cinnamon. Like when I get the foot part.
Like it's not
like
it's not
sweet.
Yeah, it's not. It's like cinnamon with some sugar in it. You know what I'm saying? Because you get like a little bit of that bite. I don't know. And on the retrohale, I tend to my senses get cinnamon. Largely because when I sniff the foot, I get cinnamon, like a cinnamon sugary kind of sweetness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has a sweet aftertaste for sure.
Yeah, I love that about that leather with the sweetness is really what draws me back. Now, it's interesting if you smoke a OpusX Maduro, totally different kind of sweetness.
For sure.
It's a dark cherry sweetness all day long, and it is awesome.
It's one of those cigars. It just lingers. The wrapper lingers. The burn lingers. Even the smoke to just come in here. It's not. It's
not like a quick smoking cigar, man. You're right. It forces you to take your time.
Yes.
With it.
Yep. That's why. Golfing, the only Arturo Fuente I do is the short story. It's great when you got 2 holes left. I just keep a short story in my golf.
True. Time-wise and balancing is important.
Time is balancing, especially, like I said, the longer the days, you can take your cigar inside and go have your burger at the 19th hole.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got 2 holes left. Chances are you've already had a cigar or 2. You've already had a couple of drinks, and you bullet cut that the short story. It's a great golf cigar.
Nice.
Definitely. And I think the short story, and let me know if I'm crazy. It's the same. It's got to be the same format for me. It still has that lingering effect, but because it's a smaller, portable version, if you will. Especially say if you're fishing or doing an activity, it does have that. It should stop you in your tracks.
Yeah.
Arturo Fuente is to me has been known for
commands your attention, certainly.
Yep.
Alrighty, with that, we are going to take a very short break and come back with our Debonair Ideal segment, non-Connecticut cigars to smoke in the morning. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.